Hey, everybody. Sharonah.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Oh my God, it's Mary.
Hello.
Mary. And we
Hi,
see
Sharonah.
Ellie. Welcome, welcome, one and all.
Ellie just got certified. Yay. And Mary, she's all ready for her gypsy readings.
This is natural. This is just my babushka from my Polish and Slovak heritage.
Babushka. Okay.
Good.
I'm going to share my screen here because we got if I can get this thing to show full screen here. I don't know what you guys are seeing. Hopefully.
It's looking good on my end.
Okay, I'm not sure. It worked when we just did it, and now it's like it's not showing.
Mine looks good.
Does it look good to you?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay. Take it away, Sharonah.
And here we go. Okay, so I just want to thank you all for joining me this afternoon. And we are going to be talking about Qabalah and the tarot. And like I often do when I begin a class, I want to thank my teachers. And I was very lucky when I started on my tarot journey. My first teacher was a man by the name of Clifford Baez. And he was teaching me tarot and ceremonial magic. But one of the things that he said, I'm not going to teach you tarot unless you establish the perfect foundation. And that is, I'm going to teach you numerology, astrology, and Qabalah. And once you have these under your belt, you're going to find it so much easier to read the cards or establish a spiritual practice with tarot. So I want to thank him. And I also want to thank my later teachers, Ruth Ann and Roald Amberstone, but also as far as numerology and tarot, I do want to thank the wonderful Dax Carlisle and Maria Moss, who also touched on this in their courses. Okay, so why Qabalah? Okay, the whole reason that Qabalah is important is this will take your tarot practice to a whole nother level. And I think that even after the short presentation that I'm doing, you're going to look at the tarot cards in a completely different way and a completely different interpretation. So let's begin. Now, you probably have noticed that Qabalah is spelled different ways. For this, we're spelling it with a Q, which is actually the way that it is pronounced in Hebrew. But just, I want to tell you why, heard someone in the background, why there are different spellings out there. So the different spellings, you'll see it with the K. And K is actually the way that it's done in the Orthodox Jewish method, and especially with the school of Qabalah that was established back in the 1500s by Isaac Luria. And that's spelled with a K. And that is the main branch that the other two branches come off of. Then you'll sometimes see it spelled with a C. And usually that's because it's what's known as Christian Qabalah. And that was due to the scholars in the Renaissance that became intrigued with the system of Jewish mysticism. Now, we're spelling it with a Q here. And that is because we are talking about what is known as Hermetic Qabalah. And that primarily came about in the early well, the late 19th century, early 20th century, particularly with the framework that was established by the Golden Dawn. So what I'm going to be going over today is Hermetic Qabalah, and primarily the tree of life. Now, when I talk about tarot, I always start off with a paragraph from my book, and it goes like this. A long, long time ago, in a land not too far away known as England, two Americans, Mr. Arthur Edward Waite and Pamela Pixie Coleman Smith, created a magical deck of cards that changed the world forever. Now, it was a deck of 78 cards, and within those 78 cards, it contains the vast wisdom of the Western Hermetic tradition. So in there is astrology, there is numerology, there is alchemy, there is Qabalah, there's angels, there's Freemasonry, sacred geometry, ceremonial ritual magic, and even a little bit of the tales of the Holy Grail. So when you have a deck of cards, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, you are carrying a little library in your pocket. So Arthur Edward Waite designed, and I like to say refined, the architecture of the deck, and Pamela Coleman Smith created the illustrations. And she created a magical language of archetypal symbols that became a vehicle to transform spiritual energy into readily accessible symbols. And a lot of the symbols that she used, she didn't create them, they were already there. And she was also inspired by a previous deck, the Sola Busca. So many people say that the Waite-Smith deck is the only deck that had the illustrated pip cards. Pip cards are another name for the minor arcana. But there was a previous deck, and that was the Sola Busca deck, which was in Italian. And what Waite and Smith did, it was the first tarot deck in English, which had illustrated pips. Okay, so let's talk, before we get into the heart of Qabalah and start working with it, I just want to give you a little history lesson. And sorry, I got to wipe my nose. Here's the history lesson. Qabalah, that we can, as far as dating it, its date goes back to the 1st century Common Era. And that's, the life and death, around the time of the life and death of Jesus Christ. Before that, it was an oral tradition that people say dated back to Moses, and that Moses, who was a prince of Egypt, did actually get a lot of the information from the Egyptians. This we don't know, but we can date it back to the 1st century Common Era. And it was studied. But to give you a little bit about history, there was something that happened after that, and that was the fall of the Roman Empire. So in the 6th to 14th centuries, there was a period in Europe that was known as the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages. And when we're talking about the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages, we're mainly talking about Europe. This is mainly, this is the story that we're telling that is very Europe-centered. So we're talking about primarily France and Italy, where there was Dark Ages and not a whole lot was going on. But that was not true in Spain, in particular, southern Spain, that was being ruled by the Muslims in Spain. And so between the years 950 to 1150, which is known as the Golden Age of Spain, there was a thriving culture where both Islam and Jewish traditions blended. So many people say this was the golden age of Qabalah, because there you have the blending of the numerology, astrology, and you have the thriving of Qabalah. And everything was wonderful until the Spanish Inquisition. And that was when, and this is many people put this theory forth as to how the tarot cards and even the playing cards came to be. So you had the Spanish Inquisition, and you had the Spanish Jews, the Sephardic Jews, that rather than die, some of them died, but some of them fled to France and Italy. Okay. And interestingly enough, this was the time that playing cards started to appear in Europe. Once again, we're talking about France and Italy. And so we're talking about the 1370s. So whether playing cards, and it's interesting, a lot of people think the playing cards came first and then the tarot cards. They kind of came up together almost at the same time. So it was believed in that the cards, playing cards, the poker cards, the tarot cards, they were brought in either by the people who were fleeing the Spanish Inquisition, who also had contact with playing cards, which were already being used in Islamic countries. So we can actually trace the origins of cards back to, it's an Islamic dynasty called, I hope I'm saying it right, the Mamluk dynasty, which was centered in Egypt. And then the cards made their way into Europe. So whether it was the Crusaders, the merchants, or perhaps the secret practitioners of Judaism, that's kind of when we started to see the tarot appearing. So one of the notable tarot decks that often comes up in these studies was created in the 15th century, which was the Sola Busca. And in the 17th century, they dated to 1650, you have the Marseille Tarot, which was in France. So that's one story as to how the cards got there, and whether or not there was always maybe it was always a playing game, but also that it was encoded with information of the Qabalah and the Jewish and Islamic teachings. So everyone's playing with the cards and loving them. And then we have the 18th century, 1770, and we have the first book that appears about tarot. And that was by a writer called, and I hope I'm saying the name right, Italia. And it was published in France. And the name of the book was A Way to Entertain Yourself with a Deck of Cards. And that's the first time where you start seeing people talking about using tarot cards as a spiritual practice or as a means of fortune telling. And I love that they say how to entertain yourself. So then we have, that's the 18th century. And then in the 19th century, around 1855, there was a book that came out by Eliphas Levi. And he wrote a book and he made the first connection between the tarot cards and the Qabalah and the Hebrew letters. Okay, some more time passes. And then we have right after that, 2 years later, after the book came out, Arthur Edward Waite was born first in Brooklyn And he later on, after the death of his American father, with his mother, he moved back to England. And Waite starts to read when he becomes of age. He starts reading about this book by Eliphas Levi. And in 1891, Arthur Waite and his wife, Ada, they were initiated with other people into a mystical organization, which today is so important, is the Golden Dawn. And it was at that time that he decided to create a new deck, which would be in English, because keep in mind, all of the tarot decks were not, they were in French or Italian. And he created what he called a rectified tarot. And he created it, and he had an artist by the name of Pamela Pixie Coleman Smith did the artwork. And this came out in 1909. So that's a brief history of how we get to Qabalah. So the whole thing is Qabalah and the tarot deck. I like to say they fit together like a hand in a glove. And you're going to be able to see how this works in a few minutes. So obviously numerology and Qabalah came first. And Qabalah, the tarot deck is very different, as we know, from playing cards, where there are 52 cards. Some people, numbers start to, can go down a rabbit hole when you start to talk about numbers, like, why are there 52 cards? Well, there's 52 weeks. But with the tarot deck, which we're going to be talking about, there are 78 cards. And for those of you who are into sacred geometry, there are 78 lines which make a structure known as Metatron's cube. Okay, so let's talk about tarot and Qabalah. And when you're talking about tarot and Qabalah, you are primarily talking about the tree of life. And the tree of life is very, very present within the tarot deck. So everyone is familiar with this card. And what's interesting, you're going to see that this isn't just 10 pentacles. This is the tree of life. So I'm going to take you through a journey on the tree of life, and it is a true journey. So what you have, I'll point out here at the very, very top, there is a circle, but it really isn't a circle. The name of it in the Qabalah, these 10 things are known as Sephirah. There are 10 of them. And what's interesting, guess what there are 10 of? There are 4 suits of 10. And you're going to see how they go through this piece of technology known as the tree of life. So the very, very top one is called Keter, okay? And in Hebrew, that means crown. So you're also going to see that the tree of life is also not only a mirror for how the world was created, but it's also a mirror of the human body. So Keter is the crown. So that's all the way at the top. And that is where, in the minor arcana, that's where the aces are. So you're going to see there is the Ace of Wands, the Ace of Cups, the Ace of Swords, and we don't want to forget the Ace of Pentacles. They are at number 1 on the top of the tree of life. Now, words that you want to remember for this are, this is the big bang. This is when the, whatever you want to call it, the divine, the source, God, Bob, whatever, it starts to flow. So it's almost like there is light that fills number one. There is a gift that is given. So it's not any surprise that when the aces were depicted, you have a hand, and it's giving creation, the all, something to create with. So the word there you want to remember is crown, the Big Bang, begin. Then the next Sephira is on, and this is Hebrew, so instead of it going from left to right, it goes from right to left, like a mirror. So you have, the next one is going to be Hokmah, which means wisdom in Hebrew. And that is where all the twos hang out. So so you're going to find the word means wisdom. Other key words are great father, initiation, balance. So this is where these cards hang out. So here you're going to see the perfect kind of first manifestation of each suit or each whirl, because remember, the whirl is created by the four elements flowing through it. So this is where you're going to see those cards. And its place on the body is the right side of the head. So you can like step in to the tree of life. And other keywords, this is the great father. It's initiation, and it's also balance. So all of you who are into numerology, you know that that's balance, and the twos. Okay, then we go to the other side of the chart. So we're going to go to what? So we're going left to right. We're going to go to number 3. So if you're looking at the chart, that's going to be Binah. And Binah is, that's where all the threes hang out, okay? But Binah is about understanding. It's also the great mother, the womb, growth. And it's the left side of the head. Now, we also see astrology coming in. And you're going to see that there's 3 pillars. We're going to go into the 3 pillars, but this is the other side of the pillar. So in Binah, it's a little bit the great mother. She's stern. She, you know, you'll see both cards that are loving and cards that seem harsh. So she's the great mother. And also in the zodiac, it's Saturn. So those of you who were part of my astrology course, you know that, you know, Saturn is kind of gnarly. Okay, so now we're going to go to number 4, which you're looking at, and that is pronounced Hesed. And in English, that would be mercy. And that is where all of the 4s be. So you'll be there, will be, you'll see them going down, and they go in an order down the tree. It's always going to be fire, then water, then air, and then earth. Okay, so it is there in Hesed, which is mercy, which is ruled by Jupiter. And keywords you're going to remember about anything that is in number 4 has said is this is where it's wise authority, but also number 4, it's stability. And okay, so we've done the head. So this is going to be the right hand. And it's the projective side. We'll get into projective side, receptive side in a little bit. So we get to 5, it is Geborah. And Geborah is severity, okay? So any of you who have studied tarot, you know that the 5s are kind of very gnarly. Severity is also ruled by the planet Mars. So these are all the cards where there's changes and there are challenges. So this is where all your 5s hang out. You know, this is where you learn through adaptation. and change. Okay, so now we're going to come back to the middle of the tree. And we're going to go to number 6, which is pronounced Tifareth. And in Hebrew, that means beauty. And this is where all the 6s be. And by beauty and by balance, you know that these cards are going to be cards that are going to be, they're going to represent the beauty of the suit, the balance of the suit, or the element, things are looking up. So Tifareth is all the 6s, and also the astrological association with it is the sun. So this is where the sun be. And the words that you want to associate with number 6, which is Tifareth, is beauty, also choice and harmony. And the part of the body that it's associated with is the heart. Okay, so now we're moving on down. We're moving on down to number 7. And number 7 is pronounced Netzash. And that means victory. And that is where all the 7s hang out. It's also ruled by Venus. So keywords here are, if it's number 7, you're going to see awareness. So you see cards like this, where awareness, reflection, really taking a look at what's going on, looking at the results that are being achieved. Because remember, you go down the tree, if you're into magic, to achieve a physical goal. So you're at 7, which is number 7, which is Netzash. Number 8 is pronounced Hod. And Hod in Hebrew means splendor. And that is where the 8s are. So what you're going to see there in the 8s are, it's like mastery. Things are beginning to move. So these are all the 8s that are at Hod. And you'll see how if you were building a tree, you can lay out your cards and start creating a tree. So we're back to the middle part of the pillar, and we're at number 9, which is Yesod, which means foundation. And the planet or the heavenly body that it's ruled by, we don't use the word planet, but the astrology heavenly body is the moon for the 9s. So this is where you start to see realization. You start to see results. So these are all the cards that are going to be at Yesod. Now, depending upon the suit like if they're in swords, sometimes it's a little bit rougher, a little bit more of a bumpy ride, but that's just representative of the suit. And finally, at the very, very bottom, so I want you to also look at this, and you're going to realize that this is a tree where the roots go up to the heavens. So the bottom is the fruit of the tree. It's called Malkuth, and that's number 10. And that's where all the 10s are. And that's where you begin to see both the beginning and the end. When you get to Malkuth, that's when you need to start all over. Sometimes people say that when we're born, that's when we start to die. So when you get to Malkuth, you're going to see cards like this that represent the extreme of the suit. So we have wands, we have cups, we have swords, and we have pentacles. And you'll notice that the very final card is the card that we have posted, where there is the tree of life. Okay, so both Pamela and A.E. Waite were very clearly saying, like, look to the Qabalah. It's in the deck. Look to it for the symbolism. Look to the way that it is laid out. So what I do want to call your attention to is that there are 3 pillars. Okay, so the one on the far right, we like to say that that one is, it's mercy. And the one that's to the far left is severity. So it's kind of like good cop, bad cop. And in the middle is where you have the Sephira, like Tifereth, Yesod, and Makuf. That is where there is balance and beauty. So we call them the pillar of mercy, the pillar of balance or neutrality, and the pillar of severity. And if you go back after this workshop and start seeing the cards, you're going to see how this is all being laid out in the cards. So this is the information that A.E. Waite had, and the information when he conveyed it to Pamela Pixie Coleman Smith that she was conveying in the cards. So the Qabalah numerology, there's no question that it is embedded into the cards. Okay, so we're not quite done with the minor cards. So you want to say, well, where are the kings? Where are the king cards? The king cards, we place them at Hokmah, because remember, that's the side of the divine father. Now, when we say father, we're not really talking about gender. We're just talking about the father is kind of the projective energy, so what you're going to see on the way down the chart, you're going to see the kings are going to be at number 2, Hokmah. Now at Binah, remember we said that's the side of the great mother energy. That's where the queens be. So you see all of the queens are going to be at number 3, which is Binah. Okay. Now, where that leaves us, where are the knights? So I like to think it's very interesting that knights have always been, they really don't have a gender. You can be a female knight, you can be a male knight. So all of the knights are at Tifereth. So there you have the Knight of Wands, the Knight of Cups, the Knight of Swords, and the Knight of Pentacles, right in the middle at Tifereth, number 6. And finally, where are the pages? So once again, balance. They're neither male nor female, mother or father. So there we have them. They hang out at number 10. They're the final stage. So we have our page of wands, our page of cups, our page of swords, and our page of pentacles. So just to kind of backtrack a little bit, when I'm not going to get into the 4 worlds, but the 4 worlds that descend the tree of life, it's always going to be start with fire. So we always like kind of lay out the cards that with the fire of whatever number they're at. So it'd be fire, water, air, then earth. And these create the 4 worlds that descend and create Malkuth. And that was, one of the teachings in the Qabalah. Okay, so, you have the 10s. Now, some people will say that there are actually 32 paths. So they count each of the Sephiras as being a path. But I usually say that there are 22 paths. So you would have, starting with, you notice there is 0, the Fool. And his pathway is from Keter to Hokmah. So let's just kind of take a look at this card. So you would be doing a thing that would be known as path working, where you step into the card and you watch what's going on. So one of the things that I've always noticed with the full card is he's actually doing the direction of walking from Keter, the crown, to Hokmah, and he's coming down. And some people say this is Hokmah up in the corner, which is the sun. So there's a thing called path working, and that's where you take each card, you see where it falls on the tree of life, and you look at how it mirrors the journey and how it mirrors what's going on with you. So the next card is we have the magician, and the magician, she goes from Keter to Binah. And if you notice, the hands are almost doing, mirroring what you see going on in the cards, on the card. But this is the card where he's taking, if you think about it, he's taking the tools that were given to the magician in Keter, the wand, the cup, the sword, and the pentacle. And he's going into Binah, which is into creation with the Great Mother. He's taking that step. And we also have, there is number 3 is the Empress. So she walks the walk between the Great Mother and the Father. And the word that you'll see with her usually is growth. I'm not going to go through each one of the paths, but I'll just go through some key ones. Okay, another key one is the path that the high priestess takes, and she takes the balanced approach. But if you notice, there is a space where there is no Sephara, no Sephara, and that area is called Darth. So she crosses the abyss. The thing that's interesting that I forgot to mention is that each one of the 22 cards is associated with a Hebrew letter. So on the sheet that I gave you, you'll be able to read all this information, but I think it's interesting that the high priestess, the letter that is associated with her is the letter Gimel. And Gimel in Hebrew means camel. So we often say that she is the camel that crosses the abyss and, keeps the balance. So she goes from 1 to 6 to beauty. So if you go down the list, with each card, you'll see that, like for the Fool, the number for the Fool is 0. We know that for the card. The letter is Aleph, which is the Hebrew letter. And what it means, so it means ox. So, he does travel. He has strength like an ox, and the key word is trust. For the magician, the letter is Beth. So that's one of the more common Hebrew words that everyone knows. Everyone has seen, like on a synagogue, a lot of them have the word Beth. Beth means house. So if you see Beth Israel, it means house of Israel. So suddenly I have you speaking Hebrew. Also in speaking Hebrew, the word Qabalah, if you go to modern day Israel, it means receipt. So if you go to a restaurant in Israel and you finish with your meal, you always say, I want the Qabalah. Now, they're not going to run over with a deck of cards or a tree of life, but they give to you a receipt, which is an accounting of what you've had. So you'll find that the word Qabalah in modern day Hebrew means receipt or an account of everything that has gone on before. So you'll see through the list that I'm giving you, you're going to see the tree of life pathways. I've given you the number, what path it is, which Sephora it is, and you can go through it. So I'll just go through a few more. Strength, which is on the Strength is an interesting card because remember I said that Hesed is mercy, Gevurah is severity. So it's a balance. You're seeing it's crossing the middle pillar. So it's strength, and it's a balance of mercy and severity, which is what you see in the card. And, there's all kinds of fun associations that you'll find, like with the Justice card. The Justice card, that's going to be on the path. You'll see where justice falls. It's crossing from Gevurah, which is severity, into beauty. And the letter that's associated with justice is Lamed. And Lamed means ox grove. And that is the device, it's a stick that you poke the ox in the rear end to get it to move. So you can think about justice is where you prod the ox to go to beauty and what is right. So we're just going to skip ahead. I'll just do 3 more cards. We have the moon, and the moon crosses from number 7, it goes to 10. And even within the card, you see that there is a pathway in the card. So the moon we know is card number 18. The letter is Qu, which means the back of the head. So we're talking about the subconscious, the reflected light. And its letter for the moon is, as I said, Qu, which means back of the head, and it's intuition. But you can see how, hidden within the symbolism of the card, you see a pathway. So the tarot cards are a pathway. And then we have the Sun card. And the Sun card is, it's from Ho to Yesod. And you'll kind of see that the card is facing that way. The Hebrew letter for the sun is Resh, which is the front of the head. And it's all about discovery. So the sun, whenever you see it in astrology or in the Qabalah, you see that it's also about illumination and learning things. And then we have the World card, which is the final card. And you see that it goes from Yesod, number 9, to Malkuth. And that's just pulling it all together into Malkuth. And another word for that is perfection. So it's from 9 to 10. The Hebrew letter is Tau, which means cross. So there we have it. We have the tree of life and how you can lay out the cards and create the tree of life and start to notice what's going on there. And it becomes that you're no longer memorizing meanings for the cards. You actively can look at the card, associate where it's falling numerically, where it's falling on the tree of life. And even there, I always like to tell people, you don't want to have a memorized meaning. You want to go with a meaning where you are staying within the moment of the reading and truly answering the question with all of the foundation that you have there. So before I take some comments and questions, just want to show you a few books that I recommend. I mean, you can find a lot of this when you Google and on the internet. The only thing there is you'll find there'll be contradictions because some of them are, when you look up Qabalah, are they talking about the mystical, purely Jewish experience, or are they talking about the Christian experience, or are they talking about Hermetic Qabalah? So since most the cards were designed around the Hermetic Qabalah, this is a book I highly recommend that you look into. It actually will take you through each one of the paths. And I have it on the list. It's the complete book of tarot. It's a little thin book, which I used to say, if you can learn everything in this book, you will be an expert, because it goes through astrology, it goes through numerology. It's available on at your local bookseller, and it's also available on Amazon. And this is the book that was written by my teacher many, many years ago, also available on Amazon. It's called Qabalah, Tarot, and the Western Mystery Tradition. And this will like also guide you as a teacher if you want to do the path working or if you want to do magic with the cards. Another wonderful book is The Rabbi's Tarot by Daphne Moore. Really good book. Goes through and explains how all this works. And finally, one of the most famous books on Qabalah is The Mystical Qabalah by Dion Fortune. So there we have it. We have an introduction to Qabalah. So I hope I haven't lost anybody. Does anyone have any questions? Hello? Anyone still with me?
Oh yeah, we're all still here. I just had to turn off the screen share, turn on the cameras, turn on the microphones.
Thank you.
This thing is slow. God, it takes forever.
Thank you for being my Vanna White, for doing my presentation. So there's a lot here. So I wanted to keep it simple and easy. I think there's a lot of information that I have on the handout, but any questions, any comments?
No, I just wanted to say thanks for doing this. It's so interesting and a lot of good information for everybody.
Cool. Well, I also should give credit. This is a wonderful little deck that that was done by Sasha Graham, where it's the circular version of the Wade Smith deck. And as you remember, she was on my show last week and she gifted me with a set of these.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask you
Cool.
what that was. I was like,
Yeah, these came
God.
out the end of last year. I cut the borders off. They had a white border.
Oh, it has borders. Oh, yeah, because it looks cut like, I was typing to Mary. It's like, Mary, did she get one of those giant decks and then just cut all the cards? That's
Well,
what it looks like.
Well, what's cool was she actually worked with an artist where they had to extend the picture that it would look right on the card. So it's kind of like you'll see an extended view of what we're used to seeing.
Cool.
Yeah, they're fun. They're fun to read with.
That's something that I always wanted to do was do a deck sideways.
Well, you can do these.
There are some decks. In fact, here, let me show you real quick what I'm talking about. So Gentle Creatures. This is not a tarot deck. This is an oracle deck, but they did that in some of these cards. So a lot of them look like, an upright card, but every once in a while, and now I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. Maybe it's the Gentle Creatures. Maybe I have the wrong deck here. I'm trying to find. Oh, there's one. Okay, good. Yeah. So this one is sideways, or actually, you could say, what do they call it now? The horizontal landscape mode. Yeah. So like on your camera, you can go, vertical, which, by the way, I hate people. If you're taking a picture, turn it landscape. Thank you. Anyway, same thing with your camera, it's like, yeah, if you're doing Zoom or you're filming a video to create content, turn your camera this way. Yeah, most of them allow you to do if you have it on a gimbal or a tripod, most of them let you turn it sideways. But see how the card's sideways, right? So I thought, okay, so if the tarot card would be like this much of the image, this is really hard to do, looking at the camera. And so, well, what would that scene look like if it stretched all the way out to the edge of the cards? tarot landscape, or the landscape tarot, or I
I
don't know.
love the stretching. You remember that toy called Stretch Armstrong? Can you imagine a
Oh
rubber
God,
deck where you could stretch it?
that was so fun. That was so fun. But this deck, by the way, this deck is great if you want to grab it. Illustration by Dan May.
Yeah, there's just so many cool decks. This one is fun because when you lay them out, they go at all different angles. So you get things where it looks like they're talking to each other or walking away, or but yeah, that's from Sasha Graham. And I said, oh my goodness, this is going to be perfect for my workshop.
Arwen Lynch wrote the book, and we love Arwen, so I just had to mention that.
Oh,
I know this has absolutely nothing to do with Qabalah, but it's fun.
and everything,
We're having fun.
everything has to do
Tarot
with
Sunday.
Qabalah.
Yeah. I know.
Everything, that's what you want to come away with this and saying everything goes back to the tree of life and Qabalah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh. I can't think of anything to ask though. I mean, it's such a huge topic. You have to get one of those books. I actually the list is on the handout. I actually saw the list and I started going through some, and some of those books are out of print. I mean, you can't get the one. You could get one on Amazon, but it was $500.
Well, that's the one.
However, I did some research, and there are a lot of new Qabalah tarot decks that came out, say between 2015, 2016, and
This one is on there. This book is, when I teach people, I make them buy this book. It was originally, you had to go
which
to.
one's that? Is that? Oh, it's Cassandra. Oh yeah, I have that one. I have that one. I have that
goes
book.
into everything, the astrology, the Qabalah, numerology, all in, and really does a really good job of doing it in like under 260 pages. And
Yeah.
that's the big writing. But it's available.
And by the way, folks, this stuff, like Sharonah said, this stuff really is everything. It's all connected. It's all connected. Now, do you need to know the depths of, Qabalah mysticism to read a tarot spread for someone? No. You don't need to know numerology. You don't need to know astrology, but trust me,
easier though. It will really,
it helps.
If you see a 2 card and in your head you think balance, and then look at the card, and is it balance in earth? Is it someone who's juggling 2 pentagrams? Or if you go to, like, what's another number? 9 is generally near completion, almost mastery, where you're mastering whatever it is that you started on. You automatically can start looking, you look at the card and you look at the person. I mean, one thing with the Qabalah, you don't want to be someone, when I teach people, I don't want them to say, oh, you're in Sephira 6 or whatever. No, if someone wants to know if they're getting their boyfriend back, they don't care about that. But, how to translate.
It's more for you.
That. Translate that you were able to take this foundation. And of course, most importantly, that you can give a loving and helpful reading. Your reading, no matter what you see, you got to make it loving and helpful, that someone can take away hope. So that's my secret to being a reader.
Yeah, I use a ton of numerology. That's my thing. And the numbers, I mean, you think of something like 5, which is change, and sometimes chaos, and then you look at the 5 cards in tarot. It's like obvious,
But that's severity. That's the Sephira, which is,
if you
severity.
already know about what all the numbers mean, then when you look at the card, it helps a lot. Let's see, what are you doing there, Mary?
Remember when we had Daniel Loeb on? He's got everything written on his deck, the Rota Mundi Tarot, all of his pathways. the Hebrew letters, everything. So it's a really great learning tool because it's written right on the card with the
Yeah, that's
images of the
awesome.
Rider-Waite Smith. So it's a great tool for that because it's like already there and you
You
can
can
kind of
also
work with that.
write it,
Yeah.
if you don't cut off the margins off of your card, you can leave the margins on and, you know, have a deck where you write in all this stuff.
Well, you can also take a sticky
Yeah.
note, not a sticky note, but like an actual label, and you can just put the label on the back of the cards when you're learning. You know, buy one deck
Yeah.
specifically for learning, and you know you get them for $5 on Etsy, right? Stick labels on the back and write all your notes on the back of the card, and you know you lay the cards out, and then you can go look at that one. Look
I
at that
have
one.
something even better. If you get the Boho Pixie Tarot, you can start reading the cards before you even flip them over, because we have the little white dog. If it's a 1 card, he's chasing a red ball.
Mhm.
So you can do that. So
Yeah.
funny. I don't know what
But I
did.
like that deck, Barry, how it's got the small image of the Waite Smith card, and then all the information, everything like that. It's like I think we need to make a deck like that for the guild that we
We
can
have this one.
Yeah.
This is where the
send to
back,
people, you know,
the back has
Awesome.
the
when they're learning.
numerology. So, you know,
Mhm.
before you flip it over, you can look at the color. And these are the colors that when I was doing the deck that I channeled from, you know, I try to tap
Cool.
into the energy that's Pixie. And she was giving me these colors. And she was the one who, when she was working with the deck, she would see various colors and the energies that were attached.
Yep.
So just a
Another
shout
fun
out to my
workshop. We
deck.
got another workshop next weekend too. The 24th. And it's going to be like a panel discussion workshop. So we're going to get as many of the staff members together as we can, and we're going to all talk about from different angles. You know, a lot of us do readings different ways, like, but it's going to be all distant. You know, so like, you know, Mary works for a service, and you know, so telephone and you know, Skype, Zoom, email.
And that's
We're
how
going to
I've been
cover
working. You know, I
all that stuff
actually read for someone on Friday who was in, believe it or not, it's in Dubai.
in Dubai. Yeah,
Yeah. It's, you
that's
know, it's
cool.
interesting how, you know,
Yeah.
the tarot is, you know, it's becoming more, it's in China. I've read for people in China.
Yeah, it's actually big in Korea and Vietnam and so forth. Yeah,
Yeah.
all Southeast Asia is,
Worldwide.
they're going nuts. Yeah. Oh, I know, it's
Printing
great.
our decks. So they're seeing plenty of the decks coming through there that are being.
Well, thanks for this, Sharonah. We'll see everybody next week.
Thank you. Love y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Bye,
Bye.
Ellie.
Thanks, Sharonah.
Bye, Mary.